Welcome to the Social Impact Journal, the podcast where we talk to change makers driving social impact around the world. I'm your host, Jack Farron, and this podcast is produced in collaboration with Rural Inclusion. Pacific small island developing states make up 7 of the 10 countries facing the highest risk of internal displacement from extreme weather events. In the final episode of our first series, I talk with Krishnan Narasimhan, the Programme Manager of the Climate Insurance and Adaptation Programme with the United Nations Capital Development Fund. We discuss his career journey in the insurance sector, what life is really like working with the UN, and his current programme, equipping communities in the Pacific Islands with insurance products and financial tools to mitigate the risks of climate disasters. Make sure to hit follow or subscribe and check out all of our social media channels on Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter at the Social Impact Journal. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Social Impact Journal, and I'm delighted to be with Krishnan today, who is based in Fiji. Good morning, Krishnan. I know it's now your Friday morning. For me, it's Thursday afternoon. How are you?
Yeah, very good morning, Jack. Thanks for having me on this episode. I'm really fine. Fiji is a little warm today, but it's fine weather otherwise. Thanks.
Krishnan, could you please give me an introduction to yourself and your work?
Thank you, Jack. My name is Krishnan Narasimhan. I am the Global Lead Technical Specialist for the United Nations Capital Development Fund's Climate Disaster Risk Financing and Insurance Portfolio. I'm based out of Suva, Fiji. And yeah, I think we'll stop here. Thanks.
Perfect. So please tell me a little bit about the Pacific region, because our audience at the Social Impact Journal is spread across the globe, and many may not have a huge amount of knowledge about Fiji and the Pacific Islands. So possibly you can give me some stats or figures of the region.
Sure. So, of course, the Pacific is a very large, it's the largest ocean, so to say. And, on the one end, you have the United States. On the other end, it actually reaches into parts of Asia. So that's how big the Pacific Ocean is. And then you have the likes of Hawaii in between. So the 2 large countries in the Pacific are Australia and New Zealand, which probably the world is very familiar with. But less familiar are the Pacific small island developing states. There are about 14, 15 of them, depending upon sovereign states and certain territories that are attached to certain other countries. Both in the Northern Pacific, which is closer to the equator, and in the Southern Pacific, which is closer to the Antarctic or closer to say Australia, New Zealand. These are small island developing states put together, and they are typically characterized by very little land mass, but very huge. The Blue Pacific, as it's called, it's a very huge ocean mass. They have substantial exclusive economic zones in the ocean. They also have substantial blue economic wealth, so to say. They're also characterized by low population densities, very geographically scattered islands, the challenges of travel and logistics, and of course other development challenges that face such countries because of the not so diversified economies that they have. Of course, Fiji in particular is relatively well advanced in the Pacific. It's so to say in the center of the Pacific. It's about roughly 4 hours of flying distance from Sydney in Australia or Auckland in New Zealand. It's also well connected across the world. We have from Fiji direct flights to the west coast of US, Los Angeles and San Francisco. Fiji is connected by direct flights with Vancouver in Canada. Fiji is connected to Singapore, Hong Kong, and to Japan. And of course, there are very regular flights to Australia, to various cities in Australia and New Zealand. So Fiji is more or less like the hub of the Pacific in terms of travel and logistics. Fiji's economy is characterized by, I would say, agriculture, fisheries, tourism are the major economic sectors. In the last few years, before the COVID, tourism was one of the largest foreign exchange contributor, and quite a lot of income comes, and quite a lot of industries are dependent on tourism. Even in terms of employment, a substantial number of people are working in the tourism industry. Agriculture, especially even like sugarcane plantations, have been there from the colonial days, more than 100 years. And the sugar industry also contributes quite substantially to the economy, but more in terms of number of people employed and in terms of export income. The Fiji also has a good diaspora across the world, so much so that foreign inward remittance from the diaspora is also quite significant. Of course, the world would know that the Fijian, rugby is world famous, and they have been winning the gold medal at the Olympic, both in 2016 and in 2020. So that's a little bit of background around Fiji.
Thank you for sharing that, Krishnan. And the main theme of this episode is to discuss the project that you are managing, the Pacific Insurance and Climate Adaptation Program for the United Nations Capital Development Fund. But before we get into that, I would really be keen to find out how your journey started, and what was your first job, and what did you learn about that?
Interestingly, my first big job, I would say, was in the life insurance domain in India. I worked for one of the largest life insurance company, which is still today the largest life insurance company, despite the opening up of the Indian market. And you now have, I think close to 23 or 24 life insurance companies and an equal number of non-life or general insurance companies. I was not an insurance professional before joining this company, but I became an insurance professional because of the training and orientation that the company put me through. And I must say that I had the privilege of working up my way through working in deep rural areas to understand the market dynamics of rural India. And then I moved to small and medium towns before moving to larger like metropolitan areas. And I had the privilege of also working in different units of that company, which means that I got exposed to HR, to IT, to marketing, to say risk management, to investments, etc., before ultimately becoming the country head of that company in Fiji. So that gave me a solid orientation and grounding into the insurance industry in general, and also life insurance in particular. And also that was an occasion when micro insurance was beginning to take roots both in India, and that gave me an opportunity to work on micro insurance in Fiji. While I was heading that company in Fiji, I also happened to have the privilege of working closely with the Reserve Bank of Fiji, where I was invited to be part of the National Financial Inclusion Task Force, which was like a policy-making body. And also I was asked to chair the Financial Literacy Working Group, which gave me an opportunity to work with other development partners, drive an agenda that was totally new to the country. And in fact, it later on became a global best practice in integrating financial education into formal school curriculum of children right from class 1 to class 12. And that project started in 2010. And I'm happy to say that Even though I transitioned out of that company and moved to the UN system, I again had the privilege of formally handing over that project, which was being run by my agency, UNCDF, under the Pacific Financial Inclusion Program, to the government of Fiji Ministry of Education in 2017. And even after a decade of that particular project being started, it's still running in the schools in Fiji, and a generation of young kids are learning personal money management skills, which will build their financial competency, financial literacy, and help them to take informed decisions in life. That's my actually professional journey. Of course, in the last 10 years, where I've been with the UNCDF, I've worked closely with the private sector and the regulatory bodies, as well as governments, in developing and implementing inclusive finance projects, which include mobile money, micro insurance, micro pensions, savings, credit. Most of them are like digital finance projects. And this is across countries like Papua New Guinea, Tonga, Samoa, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, and also Timor-Leste.
Thank you so much, Krishnan. It's good to understand the story of how you've got to the present day now, working with the UNCDF in Fiji. So I understand that Pacific small island states make up 7 of the 10 countries facing the highest risk of internal displacement from extreme weather events. So I understand you are managing the Pacific Insurance and Climate Adaptation Program. So if you can give me an introduction into exactly what that project is and some of the challenges that you're looking to solve.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. I think you have probably hit the nail into the most biggest development challenge that the small island developing states in the Pacific are facing. Of course, these challenges are being voiced at global forums like the COP. But to give you a perspective about the challenges faced and how the program that I'm managing aims to address these challenges. The small island developing states in the Pacific are increasingly facing the effects of climate change in the form of serious weather events. I would say extreme weather events. So annually, there are the estimated losses are they run into billions of dollars, because there are frequent cyclones, there are excess rainfalls and flooding. Then there is drought in certain parts of the Pacific. Then there is sea level rise. Then there are earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and like tsunamis, etc. Some of these are climate change related. Some of these are just natural hazards. But all in all, the risk and exposure is extremely high. It's also called that many of these countries are in what's called the Pacific Rim of Fire, which starts somewhere near Japan and goes down to New Zealand. Of course, New Zealand, being one of the developed states, is still not free of risk. It's you would have heard about the major earthquake in like Christchurch about a decade ago, and then last year you would have seen the underwater volcanic eruption in Tonga, which on record is the largest volcanic eruption underwater anywhere in the world. Then Fiji, Vanuatu, and other countries are exposed to frequent cyclones. There have been some Category 5 cyclones which are categorized as the highest category. So 2015 was Cyclone Pam in Vanuatu. 2016 was Cyclone Winston in Fiji. Then you had the likes of Cyclone Geeta, Harold, etc. There are many cyclones. So the period between October and April is called the cyclone season, and that's when at least one of the southern Pacific country is exposed to or gets a minimum of one cyclone. but otherwise also they get heavy rainfall. Then there is this. Then there are these other challenges of sea level rise, coastal erosion, coral reef erosion or coral reef like bleaching, and these are all countries that are very highly dependent on, like fisheries and aquaculture, and also and also smallholder agriculture. These are not countries with say commercial farming, but mostly it's like subsistence farming and backyard farming, and some sort of commercial farming. So, and then predominantly it's small businesses, market vendors, and other small business owners. So the biggest challenge is that neither the government nor the communities nor the individuals have the financial capacity to rebound from an extreme weather event. So what typically happens after an extreme weather event is that either the government repurposes its budget, which means that valuable investments that were to go into, say, development projects like building hospitals or schools or bridges get diverted to disaster relief. Many countries need external assistance from donors to come out of an extreme weather event. There were very little ex-ante instruments like insurance, and the most sought after things were some sort of contingency funding that were offered by certain development partners and repurposing of budgets. It actually puts back development initiatives by one extreme event can put back development by a few years. So this was the development challenge that we were to address through the Pacific Insurance and Climate Adaptation Program. And the main objective of the program is to develop the financial resilience and preparedness of the Pacific Islanders, small businesses, and communities towards climate change and natural hazards. When you talk about disaster risk financing, it means in the Pacific context and as accepted by the Disaster Risk Financing Technical Working Group under the Pacific Island Forum, it's infusion of immediate liquidity or immediate cash liquidity into communities affected by an extreme weather event. It is not to be linked with longer term or medium term recovery or say like climate other climate adaptation or mitigation activities, but it's the few weeks after an extreme weather event which is very, very important. Even a few $100s being made available to these affected communities or affected households would go a long way in their building back better or building back faster or recovering faster and building their lives and livelihoods better. That's the objective of this program. And we are focused on developing micro and meso level insurance solutions and other disaster risk financing solutions that will help these communities and individuals and households and small businesses come back, get financial support, get cash liquidity immediately in the aftermath of an extreme weather event. Thanks.
Thank you, Krishnan. And I understand that this is a joint project between UNCDF and also the United Nations Development Program. Who is supporting the program? Is there any governments or donors that are supporting the development of these products?
Yeah, Jack. So I must, acknowledge and thank the supporting donors. In this case, we do receive financial support from the governments of New Zealand, governments of Australia, the India UN Development Partnership Fund, and the government of Luxembourg that has infused money through the DRUA incubator under the Fijian government. The program is jointly managed by UN Capital Development Fund as the lead implementing agency, the UN Development Program as the administrative agency, and the UN University Institute for Human Security and Environment based at Bonn where it hosts the Munich Climate Insurance Initiative as a technical partner. So the program is jointly implemented by 3 UN agencies with UNCDF in the lead. And as I mentioned, we are financially supported. And I would like to acknowledge the contributions of New Zealand, Australia, India, and Luxembourg.
Understood. So when you were first building out this program, was there any climate insurance products or initiatives available to those in the Pacific?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, despite the vulnerability of many Pacific islands, most Pacific islands, the challenges that they face, as well as the repeated exposure to these extreme weather events, there were no ex-ante instruments or no insurance instruments available before we started this program. The only insurance related instrument that was available in the Pacific, or that's still available in the Pacific, is at the sovereign level. So the World Bank, as you know, has been helping to set up the regional risk pools. So it started in the Caribbean. It's called the Caribbean Catastrophic Risk Insurance Facility, CRIF, or CRIF SPC. Then you have the African risk capacity, which covers several African countries. And then you have the Pacific Catastrophic Risk Insurance Company, which started as the Pacific Catastrophic Risk Financing Financing Initiative, PICRAFI. Now it's registered as an insurance company. So these were at the sovereign level or the macro level, where these were designed as a regional risk pool, where the governments buy risk cover for themselves against cyclonic storms or excess rainfall or droughts, and the payout, if it's triggered based on a predefined index, is made to the government, not to communities or not to individuals or not to institutions. So this was there in the Pacific. This is there in the Pacific, but right now this covers only 3 countries in the Pacific: Samoa, Tonga, and Cook Islands. So the countries where we have started the programming, Fiji, Vanuatu, are not covered by any of the insurance schemes. So the first ever parametric micro insurance product in the Pacific, which again I repeat, the first ever parametric micro product in the Pacific, micro insurance product in the Pacific, was launched on 25th of August 2021, which was a product for cyclonic storms, category 1 to 5. This was done in Fiji. The UNCDF's PCAP program, as it's called, the Pacific Insurance and Climate Adaptation Program, along with the insurance industry partners, Fiji Care and Sun Insurance in Fiji, and with our technical service partners, the Weather Risk Management Services based in India, jointly worked on developing this product. This was done through several demand and feasibility studies done across the various islands of Fiji, where the specific sectors like agriculture, fisheries, tourism, and retail, they were interviewed. People from these sectors were interviewed. There were a lot of consultations with the government partners, with the ministries, with the central bank. Then we also had to work with, because in the Pacific, as I initially said, we are challenged by very dispersed islands and geographies. So digital distribution is the only way to go. So we had to work with fintech partners. We had to work with, we are working with the likes of Vodafone and Digicel, who are the largest telecommunication operators. So it's been, so the UNCDF has been in the forefront of putting together a market ecosystem. We follow a market systems approach, where we firmly believe that if an ecosystem is created, the partners are technically capacitated, they're financially supported through the unique grant-making mechanism that UNCDF has, Then market responses to address persistent development challenges can be validated. And that's exactly what the program has done in the last 2 years. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Krishnan. And I find the product development process so interesting, because this is the first product that has been developed for in terms of the micro market. So you had to really start from scratch. So how long did that product development process take, from the initial research, feasibility studies, all the way to building and testing the solution?
Check, when we were working in a market that did not have a precedence. So which means that you had to first take a call as to what is the minimum viable product that you want to put out there. And we are working with the private sector because, as a UN agency, we are not an underwriter, we are not a service provider. We are only enabling the market. So we had to look at three major components that would validate our hypothesis. One is there a demand for the product, and what is the evidence for the demand? Number two, is there a feasibility? Is there financial feasibility for the customer, or is it affordable to the customer? Because these are all market-based products and it's not a subsidized product. Nobody is paying the premium. No donor or no government is paying the premium. These are all smallholder farmers and fishers whose income is very, is actually small. And within that, how much do they put away as premium? And that's where the distribution model is very important. In this case, we developed a distribution model where agriculture cooperatives, where fisheries, associations, market vendor associations become the aggregators. And we had to link them up with the insurance companies, and that itself is a process. And all this happened in the shadow of COVID. So when we started the program in 2021 January, COVID was still there all across the world. It was only towards the end of 2021 that things became better. So we had travel restrictions. So and this was in a market where insurance awareness was very low, and insurance penetration is still very, very low. And then you had to build the capacity of the insurance companies because they were never doing parametric insurance before. So they were doing only indemnity type of insurance. So how do you make them do parametric insurance? Or how do you make them sell parametric insurance? How do you get the management buy-in? So all this was done. Of course, the product development process was like a co-creation process. Like product prototypes were created based on the demand studies that we did, which pointed to how much would be the premium threshold, what would be the sums insured, and then we had to take it back to the beneficiaries and ask them questions around, will you buy it at this premium level, or would you be interested in this premium level, etc. So all this field work was done, and then this back and forth. Some of it had to be done virtually, and some of it we could. Thankfully, Fiji had lesser restrictions because it was not impacted so heavily in the first round. Only in 2021 there were some restrictions. I would say that the total after the data, the feasibility data and the demand data was in place, the product development cycle took about the initial product development cycle took about 3 to 4 months. It included a period of field validation where we had to go and talk. Of course, in this product, you are not validated until you have a trigger event. But then you had to go and talk with the product, and it's an abstract product. You go with a brochure, and what do you show? It's not like a physical product that you can show. So these challenges were there. But I must say that thanks to the support of our implementing partners, thanks to the response of the market, and thanks to the support of the Reserve Bank of Fiji, because this product was also not directly under any regulation that they had. So they allowed us a sandbox clearance. So they have a fintech regulatory sandbox in place. So this product was given approval through the sandbox provisions, and we had to work with them very closely and with the industry to navigate the conditions under the sandbox. And eventually, we're going to exit the sandbox conditions, and it's going to be made available as a normal product in the market. Thanks.
Thank you, Krishnan. And maybe for those that don't understand so well, could you just explain what a regulatory sandbox is?
So in markets that don't have particular acts or regulations for a financial service or a financial product, then there are two ways in which the regulator can approach that particular solution. And it's a totally new solution in the market for which there are no rules, there are no laws that govern the offering of that particular product in the market. Then the regulator can either tell the service provider, in this case, it could be a bank, it could be an insurance company, it could be a remittance service provider, to not introduce the product till such time they come up with the appropriate regulations or appropriate governing structures, like statutes. That's one option, which means that the innovation is delayed, or the introduction of the innovation is delayed. The other option is they can say that we allow you to introduce this particular product or solution within certain parameters, within certain conditions. The condition could be that it can be offered for a particular geographical jurisdiction or particular segment of the market for a particular period, let's say 12 months or 24 months. Then there is a reporting requirement every 3 months about how the implementation has been going. Then you have, at the end of the 12-month period or 24-month period, then the regulator takes a call as to whether this product can be continued under any one of their existing regulations, or it also allows them by that time to come up with an appropriate regulation. Then there are certain other conditionalities that can be placed, in the sense that the total number of clients that they can reach during this trial period or test period cannot exceed a particular number, or if it's a simple savings product, they can say that you cannot collect more than this amount as say deposits. So in other words, these are certain conditions, or these are certain restrictions imposed on the provider, and that's why it's called a sandbox, because it's a closed environment, it's a controlled environment within which the new innovation is allowed to be deployed by the provider. The service provider also learns and is given an opportunity to improve, is given an opportunity to change, or at the end of the trial period, if it was not found feasible to have an attractive market, or it's make a business case, then in which case they can withdraw the product.
That's well understood. Thank you. So I'm aware that the inception phase of the program has been completed. Now there are plans to scale up the program into new countries. So it would be great if you can share some of the key results from the inception period, and maybe one or two case studies of policyholders that have benefited from the program.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. So during the inception phase, the program focused on 3 countries, Fiji, Vanuatu, and Tonga. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, due to COVID restrictions, the large focus was in Fiji, where the core team of the program is stationed. And we also did quite a lot of work in terms of both testing the initial product, and also based on market feedback and customer feedback, improved on the product to include rainfall as a component. The original product, the first product that was introduced in 2021, was only a heavy wind cyclonic storm product. This was improved based on market feedback to include rainfall as well. So which means there are 2 triggers that can actually result into a payment. It can be a heavy wind cyclonic storm based on the wind speed, then there can be heavy rainfall. It can be a combination as well. So this was again introduced in 2022 August. And at the end of the inception phase in December 2022, a total of 4,147 customers were reached by the 3 insurance companies. There were initially, in the initial year, there were 2 insurance companies that were underwriting or that were offering this product. Fiji Care and Sun Insurance Company came into a co-insurance agreement, which means that they take 50% of the total risk each, but they offer the product together. Then last year, 2022, we have a regional insurance company, a large insurance company called Tower, which is headquartered in New Zealand, but has 7 countries in the Pacific in their domain. So they also came on board and started offering the heavy wind product towards the end of last year. So by the end of the inception phase in these 3 countries, a total of 4,799 households have been reached. And this is way above the target that we had set for ourselves when we started the program. We said we will reach about 3,000 households. And actually, thanks to the effort of the distribution partners, as well as the 3 insurance companies, there were about 4,799 households reached. Now, that's one success, the number of households reached, because they now have insurance coverage, and should there be an extreme weather event, and we don't wish that there should be an extreme weather event, the families will get payouts ranging, can get payouts up to either 1,000 Fijian dollars or 2,000 Fiji dollars or 3,000 Fiji dollars, depending upon the type of insurance that they have taken. And $1 Fiji dollar, $1 US dollar is about 2 Fijian dollars. Yeah, so that's the type of coverage that's there. Then what is important is that, like I said earlier, there was an extreme rainfall happened in the Western Division of Fiji in the first couple of weeks of this year, January, and that resulted into a trigger. And the process of this parametric insurance is that the big difference between parametric insurance and index insurance, I should have explained this at the beginning. So parametric insurance does not require actual loss and damage assessment as in any claim. So, for example, if the car is damaged, you need to get an assessment done as to what is the damage in the car so that the insurance company can pay. If there was a fire on a house, then there are damages done. But in a parametric insurance, there's no need for an assessment of damage. It's based on predefined triggers. It's based on indexes. For example, it can be based on a wind speed more than say 100 kilometers or say 90 kilometers is categorized as something, and more than 200 kilometers is categorized as category 5, let's say. So these are predefined triggers. So which means that if these predefined triggers were met based on actual observed weather data, and this weather data can be either remotely sensed or locally monitored by the respective Met offices. Once these triggers are met, automatically the payments are made. And like I said, there's a digital component in our sort of ecosystem, which means that while the onboarding is also digital, the client onboarding is digital. So client data is captured in the field through a mobile app, which means that their actual location is captured at the time of onboarding, which means that every customer's location can be mapped on the country's map. Their GIS coordinates are available. So once a trigger event has happened, based on their location of the insured person, then the payout is made. The payout will depend upon the intensity of the particular event. It can be wind speed, it can be rainfall, it can be lack of rainfall in the case of a drought product. So then the payout is made directly into the mobile wallets or into the bank accounts. In this case, due to this extreme weather event, 535 payouts were made within 10 days of the whole cycle happening, and the data was made available. And all of them got payouts into their mobile wallets within a few days, which actually validated that through this digital distribution model, the last mile reach is ensured, and no one is left behind. As we are a very inclusive program. Nearly 50% of the beneficiaries have been women, and of the 535 beneficiaries, nearly 200 of them have been with persons with disabilities, because the Pacific Disability Forum, with whom we work as a distribution partner, has been able to cover 600 of its members through this parametric insurance scheme. And I think these are all very good success of the program. The number of women who have been covered, 47%, and the people with disabilities, people who have been covered, and then smallholder farmers, market vendors and fishers, who are probably the most vulnerable because of the jobs that they have or the work that they do, and also because they don't have any other fallback mechanism whenever there is an extreme weather event. Thanks.
Thank you, Krishnan. There's definitely some incredible success stories in the inception part of the program. So what are your plans for expansion in 2023?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I always believe, and I always tell my team, that good work is always rewarded with more work. And so based on the midterm review of the program that was conducted late last year, and validation through this claim payouts that have come, and I must say that the claim payouts done by the insurance company is the only financial assistance that these affected communities or affected households have received, because there was no other payout. Because what very strangely in humanitarian response, there is a necessity for declaration of an emergency before a humanitarian response can happen. And in this case, it was only excess rainfall, and which did not call for an emergency. So I'm saying that parametric insurance or such type of instruments is a very sure way of going forward. So in 2023, there will be regional expansion in the Pacific. We are thinking of expanding to a minimum of 3 countries, if not 4: Samoa, Solomon Islands, Kiribati, and Papua New Guinea, if possible, or one of the Northern Pacific countries. I have also been mandated by the UNCDF management to look at global expansion, and we are starting feasibility studies in 4 African countries and in the Caribbean. And we are also engaging with our counterparts, or with my colleagues in parts of Asia, and we might be looking at a couple of Asian countries as well for expansion. I mean, of course, all this would require new resources. We are in the process of talking to potential donors about also resource mobilization, and we're very confident that the work that we have done and the success that the program has established in the Pacific, in Fiji in particular, would pave the way for a smooth takeoff, not only in the Pacific, but also for the global expansion. Thanks.
Thank you, Krishnan. I really like the idea of good work always results in more work. But best of luck during 2023 with that geographical expansion, both in the Pacific and elsewhere. Leaving that project to aside for now, many of our listeners may be starting out in their social innovation journey and in the international development sector, and will wonder what life is like working with the United Nations. So maybe you can share some experiences with me about that.
Yeah, thanks. I must say that I probably joined the UN system rather late in my career, in my professional career. I wish I had joined 20 years back or 30 years back. I have been in the UN system only for 10 years, but I must say that it was a leap of faith when I actually joined the UN system. I was in a good position, in a well-paying job. Being a CEO of or a country lead is no mean achievement, and it's always exciting to work in in the private sector, so to say. But when I joined the UN, it was initial days was a little bit of struggle because I had to understand how the UN system works. I also had to understand how to navigate myself within the system. And then after that, it was I would say it was a short learning curve, but I was happy to be thrown into the water and learn to swim, so to say, within the UN system. And in a short time, I was able to establish my credentials as a person who can also work in the development space quite well. For youngsters, I think it's a very good opportunity to get into the UN system for multiple reasons. One is that it's a direct opportunity for you to work with vulnerable populations and like beneficiaries who definitely need the interventions that various UN agencies and different programs that they undertake. I'm not here only to talk about UNCDF, but I'm talking about the overall UN system. Many UN agencies are making a big difference to the lives of people, be it a health challenge, be it a challenge faced by women, be it a challenge faced by farmers. There are a lot of development challenges that plague the world, and the UN system is well positioned to support very many developing countries, the least developed countries, and also the developed world, because there are some political challenges that are there, the conflict challenges that are there. So I think it's always good to work in the UN system from the point of view of making a big difference to the world that we live in. The ambitions of the Sustainable Development Goals are something that any professional would like to pursue and contribute in his or her own way for their fulfillment, because ultimately it's a legacy that we can leave behind to this beautiful place called Earth, that where we all live. So from that point of view, it makes all the more it's all the more thrilling working for the UN system. And there are some very exciting stations where even life is a challenge, but working for the UN is even more challenging. And with these challenges, it's also exciting to bring out the best in people. And I will say that youngsters can look out for opportunities in the UN system. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that overview of working at the United Nations. And one of the points you touched on was the ability to work in new countries and travel. And I imagine that with this project and your work, you have had the opportunity to visit many places. Is there one particular country or place that stands out for you as your favorite?
See, Jack, to be honest, I will say that there are unique things in very many countries. It's not that you are fixated with one country, there are very, very beautiful places and very nice places all over the world. The world itself is a very beautiful place, and we are very fortunate to be. Of course, I'm not saying that there's no life out beyond the earth, but I think the world itself is a beautiful place, and we should all make sure that we don't that we hand it over to the future generations in a better place, or being a better place than what we already what we inherited. I have been to quite a lot of very, very interesting places, met interesting people. I will not fixate myself on one favorite place at all, because there are lots and lots of favorite places all across the world. And each country is unique, and each country has its own, unique flavor, food, people, and the beauty of the sea, the beauty of the mountains, the beauty of the rural areas, the beauty of the desert. So each one has to be seen from that perspective, and I would see it only from the lens of beauty wherever it is. Of course, there are development challenges in many countries, but within them there are also well-minded people who want to address these challenges. And like I said earlier, there's not one place which I would like to lock myself in. There are several nice places, several beautiful places across the world. So yeah.
Very well said. Very well said. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the episode, but before we finish, if you had your own social impact journal and you could write one page to share advice with a young innovator or entrepreneur that wants to work in the financial inclusion space and make social impact, what piece of advice could you give to them?
Well, so I must say that there is a huge world of opportunity that awaits them, basically because I think though financial inclusion has been there for, I would say, 3 decades or 2 decades in all, there are quite a lot of gaps to fill and like progress to be made. We have probably only scratched the small surface of what we need to do, and there are significant gaps, especially in many developing economies, to reach a level of financial inclusion which will meaningfully take care of the well-being of a majority of the population, I would say. And the person who wants to start as a social entrepreneur or a youngster seeking out a journey in this space has probably in a better position right now, because there's quite a lot of research and quite a lot of sort of evidence as to what works and what does not work now than what was there out there 10 or 20 years back. And that's a big advantage that these people have. Let them gain this knowledge, let them gain this understanding. And technology has become a great enabler. It's also become a great equalizer. And from that point of view, they should also be familiar, or they should become familiar with the new age technologies that are making a world of difference to this domain of financial inclusion or digital inclusion. And I would encourage them to equip themselves, to capacitate themselves, to become knowledgeable, and look out for good opportunities where they can contribute and make a difference to this domain. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishnan, and I want to say thank you for joining me on this podcast. I've learned so much in the last hour on the climate risks faced by communities in the Pacific Islands and the great work you're doing on the Pacific Insurance and Climate Adaptation Program at UNCDF, of course, alongside your agency partners, donors, and implementing partners. How can one of our audience reach you? Are you active on LinkedIn, Twitter? Which social networks can they reach you on?
So I am happy to connect on the LinkedIn. I am on the LinkedIn, and I think you have my LinkedIn coordinates that can be shared. And I can also share with you my personal email, or you have my professional email. So that can also be shared with those who are interested, who respond after sort of listening in to this podcast. So otherwise, LinkedIn would be a good way of connection.
Okay, thank you. We'll share all of the relevant links in the show notes of the podcast, including some of the documentation and links to the great project you are currently running. But Krishnan, thank you so much for your time and joining me on the Social Impact Journal.
So thank you so much, Jack, for this opportunity. I wish all listeners, all the very best. We just started 2023. All the very best for 2023 and beyond. And if there is any way in which I can be of assistance or to any one of the listeners, I would encourage them to reach out to me.